You know, it's one of the oldest and, frankly, one of the darkest family stories ever told. Today, we're going to dive deep into the tragic foundational story of Cain and Abel, right from the book of Genesis.
And that's a really haunting question, isn't it? I mean, of all the stories you could tell about the very first children on Earth, why start with one that ends in murder? It's a huge puzzle, and that's exactly what we're going to try and unpack.
Okay, so to really get a handle on the story of Cain and Abel, you can't just look at it in a bubble. We have to see it as the beginning of, well, a pretty troubling new pattern that we see in the first few chapters of Genesis.
So this story doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. It comes right after Adam and Eve's exile from Eden, and it's part of what's often called the primeval history. It's basically a series of stories where humanity keeps messing up the good world God created, leading to what some have called these divine disappointments.
Now, here's a key idea you have to grasp to understand what's going on. It's this concept called the overturn of primogeniture. Back in the ancient world, it was all about the firstborn son. He got everything, the inheritance, the status, the whole shebang. But what's so fascinating is that time and time again in Genesis, God flips that script and favors a younger son instead.
And the Cain and Abel story? It's literally the first time we see this happen, but believe me, it's not the last. Later on, Isaac gets chosen over his older brother Ishmael. Jacob gets the blessing over his older brother Esau. This idea that God's choice doesn't follow human rules is absolutely fundamental to these early stories.
All right, so let's get to the heart of it all. Let's see how this exact pattern plays out with Adam and Eve's first two kids.
So on one side, you've got Cain. He's the firstborn, a farmer, working the soil. And on the other, you have Abel, the younger brother, who's a shepherd. Each of them brings an offering to God, something that comes directly from their own work and their own life.
And this is the moment where everything changes. God accepts Abel's offering, but he rejects Cain's. And here's the crazy part. The Bible gives us zero explanation for why. This unexplained choice, this divine preference, well, it's the spark that's about to light a terrible fire.
So God's rejection, it doesn't just make Cain sad. Oh no, it ignites a resentment so powerful that it leads to the world's very first murder.
For Cain, this is just completely consuming. You can almost feel it, right? It's not just disappointment. The text describes this deep, burning resentment that starts to poison him against his own brother.
And what's so chilling is that this wasn't some spur-of-the-moment crime of passion. The way the story is told, it feels premeditated. Cain invites his brother, who has no idea what's coming, out into a field. He's deliberately getting him alone.
And right there in that isolated field, he kills him. It's just so stark and horrifying. The very first human death in the Bible isn't from old age or an accident. It's at the hands of a brother.
So, what happens next? What's the fallout from this awful act? Well, God confronts Cain directly, and the consequences, they're severe, and they're going to last.
God lays down this heavy three-part curse on Cain. First, his connection to the land is totally severed. The same ground that drank his brother's blood will no longer grow food for him. And second and third, he's kicked out. He's destined to be a fugitive and a wanderer, forever cut off from his family and his home.
But, you know, the story doesn't just end there, with murder and a curse. After all that tragedy, there's a little sign of continuation, a chance for a new start for humanity.
And into this completely broken family, a third son is born, Seth. His arrival is framed as a direct, divine answer to the horror of what happened to Abel.
And Eve herself makes it crystal clear what this is all about. She names him Seth, saying God has given her another child, and here's the key part, to take Abel's place. He's not just another son, he's explicitly a replacement, a chance to rebuild the family line that Cain destroyed.
And this is really the question we're left wrestling with, isn't it? Okay, so Seth's line begins, taking the place of the murdered Abel. But does this new start actually break the cycle? Does humanity, now stained by this first act of violence, somehow escape this pattern of resentment and failure? Well, the stories that follow in Genesis suggest the answer is not so simple.